you get into that next stage of reinvention where you start to see that there's other ways that you can make money, other ways that you can live and work, other ways that you can earn income. Yo, Chris, man, what are you doing? What are you up to?
I'm just helping people reinvent their lives. No big deal.
Yeah, no big deal. Well, I'm going to join in. Cool.
God bless, we're breaking these runs. Life too short to play it on speed run.
All right, Todd, what's going on today? What are we talking about?
What's up, man? I feel like I'm you today wearing my plaid. If you can't see us, you're listening to the podcast. Usually Chris is all plaided out, and I'm usually like straight colors, but we got a little reverse action going on today, huh?
Yeah, that's right. I don't know if I got fully California, but you got your Northeast autumnal plaid on right now.
That's right. That's right. What's going on?
So what are we talking about today? We talking about the game plan, Todd?
Well, yeah, I mean, look, game planning for reinventors is absolutely huge. A lot of times, like, it's very pie in the sky. I'm going to reinvent my career. I'm going to align it with my purpose. And we do a lot of that here, right? You know, getting clarity, like working on the mindset. But at the end of the day, where the rubber meets the road is game plan, creating a game plan and having some level of tactician energy in what you're going to be doing over the next 6 months, the next year, the next 2 years and out for your career. Because look, Chris, let's just be really honest. Things are changing really fast, right? Like, I'm connected with a lot of people in Silicon Valley, and what they're telling me in terms of what's coming down the pipe with AI, we all need to be really thinking about this right now. Like, even us right here, and we're going to be doing a lot of conversations about what careers and what jobs will emerge for humans over the next several years. But for right now, today, I think game plan is about being tactical and like looking at your reinvention and being really clear about like, okay, what do I need to do? What decisions do I need to make that are going to be more aligned with securing a great future for myself and my work? I mean, that's how I hold it.
Absolutely. And I love the way you put it too. We're coaches, right? So a lot of what we both help people do is get that vision clarity and that big picture and figure out where you're going in life. And a lot of that stuff it's very big, and it's also maybe a bit abstract. And game planning is taking the abstract and distilling it into concrete and to tactics and to something you can actually act on. Both sides are really important. I actually think, if anything, there's a weakness out there in the world, at least what I see, so many coaches out there where I'm like, are they helping people with the game plan part? Or are they just kind of going like, you know, be your best self, and then like
Motivated, come on, you can do it, right?
Right.
Do a little bit of that.
You've got to figure that
sometimes
out, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, again, I think we can get caught into that, but I mean, that is incredibly important, especially, again, it depends on the person we're working with, right? There's some people who are great at the tactics, so you have to help them break through that big picture stuff. But also, even for those people, it's tactics in a completely different world. Like, this is reinvention. Right. This is something that they've not been doing for 10 or 20 years, whatever it is. So you need a different kind of plan.
And I love what you said when we were preparing for this. And you said, well, look, getting clarity and like taking a moment in time to think about your idealistic or your more idealistic life vision or career vision, which is a lot about what we talk about. And one of our main tenets in reinvention is this notion of getting clarity. Like, it's a really good exercise. Spend some time thinking about what you want. And then you want to start what you said, working backwards, right? You want to start working backwards and start getting tactical with, okay, well, now that I have some idea about what a reinvention could look like, how do I now start doing things that can be more aligned with that future career, that future work, or that future life even, right? So I love that you said that, the working backwards piece.
Yeah, and I think that's one of those things where there has to be a practical lens on it, right? If I look at and say, hey, I have a 5-year plan I'm working towards, right? And we can get into how you determine whether it's a 1 or a 5 or a 10, right? I think that's important. But you know, if you have a destination in mind that's clear and it's 5 years from now, well, like the further out I go in time, it's kind of like the realm of possibility widens. The likelihood that I'm going to be really accurate about what I'm actually doing 48 to 52 months from now is pretty low, right? So it's this idea of high level, where are the waypoints that we want to be at? And then that way you can walk your way back to like, what does that mean I have to do like literally next? Right. And I think that for me personally, again, I just tie a lot of this stuff back to my own personal reinvention journey.
Yeah.
It's really, I struggled for a long time with getting into real specific tactics about what the next thing I needed to do was, because like I could think of a laundry list a mile long, about 1,000 things I needed to figure out about my business. But like, which was the one that really was the right unlock that I needed to do now so that I could then hang all the other things off of it afterwards?
I love that. And that actually leads into what I want to talk about right now. We're going to get a little bit tactical here. And if you're listening, I really want you to pay attention to start self-identifying where you feel you fall into the spectrum of reinvention. Because Chris, what we found, and we both coached like hundreds, maybe thousands of people in this process, of people who have been laid off or they want to start something new or make their side hustle, their main hustle. There really are these three kind of stages, right, in the reinvention cycle. Okay. And the first stage is, and if this is you, just like really pay attention right now. It's like, well, the writing's on the wall in some way. Like either you've kind of been laid off or you kind of know it's coming, or your industry is changing rapidly due to AI or the political scene or whatever. You're not exactly sure what to do, or you also could be just burned out. Like it's not sustainable for you to stay in your career. And you're in that moment in time where you're like, like, what am I going to do? Right. This is kind of stage one. And when you're in that stage, the game planning is a little bit different than when you're further along in the reinvention process, which we're going to cover, right? So we want to talk about it tactically. So if you're in stage one and you're listening to this and like, man, like, yeah, he's right. Writing's on the wall. I'm not exactly sure what I need to do. Your game plan right now is to look in the mirror, or even right now, and be like, yeah, I need to think about reinvention, and I need to start getting clear about what's possible for me in the future. And that doesn't necessarily have a really specific time frame around it. But what it does have, when you look at it and say, all right, I need to take this on as an opportunity. I need to not be so fearful or dismissive. We found that a lot of people are dismissing the notion that they need to reinvent, right? I'm not being dismissive. I'm going to turn towards it, and I'm going to start looking at this as an opportunity. And when you do that, you then start to go through the stages of development with reinvention faster. But I think we want to start there, talking to the people that are at that stage, right? That are like, oh man, I need to reinvent, something's up. And like, you were there, right?
Well, and I think that to some extent, at that moment, the best game plan is clarity. We have our 6 tenets of reinvention that we talk about in our community, and clarity is a separate tenet. What I see a lot of, and I'm pretty sure you see a lot of too, is I talk to people who are like, they'll tell me all the things that are wrong with their current situation. And it's more than just, I got a bad boss. Like, it's more than just, I don't like, Tuesdays at this office. It's like, I don't want to be doing this for work. This work, hurts me in some way. Like, I really don't want to do this anymore. And a lot of times the first quote unquote solution they offer is just hopping to some place doing the exact same thing, but with a different brand and a different name. And, again, I'm not belittling people's problems, but I've seen it enough times that I'm like, well, how do you think that's going to solve it? The problem you're identifying is not going to be solved by doing the same thing in a different place. So to me, that's a moment for a step back to say, let's get the clarity about what you're doing. Because I think people think that taking action in that way without having studied or having given a little bit of thought to the clarity, that in itself does not solve anything. And that's the opposite of a game plan. That's sort of just throwing up a ball in the air, hoping it's like a Hail Mary.
I mean, I see this all the time, Chris. Okay, so I get on the phone with people and they tell me, well, my career, I've had it for a while, like building to some level of success, but things are changing, either burnout, industry's changing, writing's on the wall in some way. Okay. And you're at that moment. Here's the first, let's just get real tactical. The first step of reinvention is, am I going to go and scour LinkedIn for the same job and the same type of job to make sure that I keep my level of security financially, usually, or my level of prestige, so that way the people around me don't have to think that like I'm blowing up my life, right? And really making a big shift. That's part of the process, right? And we're not here to tell you that you need to leave your 100% your current career line to reinvent yourself, right? Like, no, but it is something that you need to look at. Like, this is a time to raise your self-awareness and look at, there are other things that potentially you could be doing. And I have seen this in my coaching practice so many times, where just like shining that light bulb on people that are in stage one, that there are other things that can happen. And we'll talk about that when we get to stage 2 in a moment, that can start making money, that can start replacing some of the things that you were doing previously. And like, this is a big moment in time where I think a lot of us need to really be looking at that and opening ourselves up to the possibilities that I don't need to just scour LinkedIn, and like just get the same job over and over again, because guess what? Most likely, a very high percentage, that job that you're going to recreate is going to leave you in the same place, disappointed, frustrated, and it may not even be there in 6 months to a year from now. Okay. So what we're talking about here is just a very gentle nudge to be like, hey, let me lift up and be like, okay, what else can I do? Because there is a lot, which we're going to talk about today, and how to make a game plan. But I think that's, to summarize, what that first stage is like getting clarity, being more self-aware, and being like, all right, let me take this on. Let me look at what else is out there for me. I mean, you did this, right?
Yeah. And you said it so well too, right? It's like, we're not even saying that you have to blow this all up and go do this other thing, right? And in a way, that is what I did, right? And it was through a process of assessing that, hey, this whole thing really isn't working for me, so I need to invent something sort of completely different, which, by the way, at the same time, taps into all my corporate experience and has all my leadership experience deployed in a different way. So like, it's not really blowing it all up, but it's just a very different framework. But I think what we're asking people when you're at this stage one of sort of like just thinking, is there something else? Because this isn't working. Then really all you have to do at that moment is openly explore the possibilities of what the something else's might be.
Right.
We're not saying you have to go start a whole new thing from scratch, or like go from being a corporate person to a farmer or something like that. But we want you to have the realm of possibilities be more open than just a lateral move or whatever it is.
And here's what I found, and we're going to go into stage 2 now. Okay. So we're going to take you on the journey. We're going to take everyone here on a journey of reinvention. Okay. We're going to define it as well. Like, for me, what successful reinvention is, I'm going to define that in a moment. But then what happens, and this is again from experience of coaching so many people through this process, is so you start to see new possibilities. And guess what? Opportunities are there, right? And you get into that next stage of reinvention where you start to see that there's other ways that you can make money, other ways that you can live and work, other ways that you can earn income. It could be through a side hustle. It could be through hanging up your own consulting or coaching shingle. I have a lot of clients that start doing factional work, right? I have a client that was a CMO in tech and then left and started doing factional work, working half the time, making double the money. I mean, like, good for him, right? That's one pathway there. There could be something creative. Like, all of a sudden you start to see that there's other things that you can do. And this is, to me, the most interesting stage of reinvention, because now you're like, yeah, there is possibility for me to do other things, right? And money can start coming in these other ways. And then you're in that place where you're like, like, should I fully go for this? Or am I still going back, looking for like the same old, right? Like, this is like where the reinvention process, starts to really test you,
I got to jump in because
go. Yeah, this is all you.
Story
here,
right?
Yeah.
Right. Because I think the thing is, like, if I think about my timeline of when I was sort of stage one and like, there's got to be something different, that was almost 2010 or something like that. It was pretty early on where I was kind of like, and it took a long time for me. By the way, with reinvention, with everything we're talking about in our community, one of my personal goals is that we help people have a shorter timeline for reinvention than I personally experienced. Right? I mean, that actually is a pretty strong KPI for me, is that, can I help people do in 3 years what I did in 12 or whatever you want to call it, right? But, I was dipping my toe into the possibility, let's say, of like, there could be something else I could be doing, and exploring that and thinking about that for a really long time. But then around 2019, I actually got laid off from a corporate role that was so wrong for me. And I, rather than going right back into corporate, I picked up a consulting gig, really just on a whim of like, let me try this. I was just like, that's not working, and I freaking hate that. So like, let me just like try this and see what the deal is. As you know, Todd, that opened the portal for me to this whole possibility of, I don't have to be in that universe of corporate at all. Right? Now, I went back into corporate after that, and there's lots of reasons that I won't go into right now, but like, this is for the stage 1 people and the stage 2 people to think about that possibility of, hey, once you like learn that you can make money in this other way, now you can't unlearn that.
Right.
Like, you know that forever. And so now there's a little bit of, do I go all in? Is there something there for me that I can explore? Or maybe it is fractional and I've got a little bit of this and a little bit of that and a little bit of that. But like, once you blow that door open, you're here in a way. You're in the reinvention community, whether you know it or not. At that point.
Reinvention really starts the moment that like some money comes in some other way. I mean, that's actually what I found. You started doing consulting. Like, I'm thinking of all these people that I've helped in this, right? And sometimes it's random. Like, you started helping out your nephew in some business, and all of a sudden there's something there. And you're like, oh, well, that's kind of interesting. And I can apply my skills that I've learned here, but is this something that's really real? Or that could be, well, I started posting on social media and I'm kind of now building up a personal brand and people are following me. And like, is there something there? And I'm getting all these interesting offers. Like, when you get to stage 2, you are now much more open to this idea that, okay, the world is open right now and there's a lot of opportunity and money's coming in, and I'm starting to test out shingles. I'm starting to test out ideas. Money's coming in. And I just want to reiterate what you just said, because you said to me many times, like, man, like, I wish I would have known these 6 tenets that we talk about here in this podcast and in our community. I wish I would have known that, because it would have saved me a lot of time. That's the point. You're speaking my language right there.
Yeah.
Because I love speed in any transformation process. Like, to help people get there faster is always my goal. I think that's like how I'm wired. I see people, I'm like, I'm just going to help them redirect as fast as I can.
Right.
And when we're talking about reinvention, particularly, and game planning, I'm going to be just like flat out honest. When it comes to reinvention, like, the way that I really define it is when somebody is able to create a line of work that's making money, right? That is more closely aligned to something that they're passionate about, something that is more related to their purpose, something that is more related to the lifestyle they want to be leading than before. And the big win happens, what I would say, like successful reinvention, where I'm like, boom, you did it, is when that income is the same as, or a lot of times more than, what you were making before. Then you're free, right? Then you're like, bam, wow, like, how did I get here? And I love talking.
Now, Todd, I think that last part is a stage 3 concept.
Yeah, we were going a little
in terms of the way we think of our.
But it's the goal. It's the goal, right? That's what I kind of want people to think about this.
And I think that's a great point, though, is to say, in terms of game planning specifically, right? We talked about in stage 1, really the game plan is around clarity and trying to figure out like what it is you're going for here, so you have a direction to travel. In stage 2, you're starting to at least have gathered some experimental data,
right?
Such that you like know what feels good for work, or know, oh, I can do this thing. I make a little money from consulting, and I make a little money from my TikToks about knitting, or like whatever it is, right? So now it's, your game planning is a little bit different, because it's, okay, so how do we like systematize that experimentation? How do we start to put some metrics and measures around, like, oh, I'm putting X amount of time into this and it feels good or bad, versus that, like, to start to pull some levers and decide like, which of these things do I want to scale?
I love that.
And in what proportion, right? That's like a very different, it's still game plan, but it's a very different lens.
You're right on. Yeah, you reeled me in. You reeled me in. I went ahead, but I think you're absolutely right. Like, at that stage, the other thing that you want to look at when you're in stage 2 is when you're making the game plan. Yes, you're mentally deciding like, how much am I really exploring these things? But you want to start really tracking, like, all right, am I making money? What are the opportunities? Also, what skills can I learn that can help me really explore this? And this is something that I've done a lot of coaching on, where people are like, man, like, these new things have emerged and I'm really seeing that there's possibility. Okay. And I have skills from my past that can apply, right? This is what they say to me. But I don't really know, because there's things that I don't know. You know what I say? Well, learn those things. Become a student again, beginner's mind, right? Like, so I had somebody who was in a situation that we're talking about right now, but the business to grow requires some level of digital marketing expertise, right? And it was like talking to me, it's like, well, I don't know that. I'm like, well, learn it. Like, it's not that hard to learn nowadays, like how to learn how to market that particular thing. Like, it's an opportunity to take what you had in the past and grow. And I think when we name it like this, it helps people understand like, oh yeah, I'm not going to have all the answers in stage 2. I'm not going to have all the answers, but I can start to build a business plan around this. Like, let's get tactical. Like, what is my game plan business wise? What are the skills I need to learn? What are the KPIs that I'm tracking? What are the different opportunities? Like, who do I need to bring in and, to round out what I'm missing? Like, reinvention is, even if you're not going to take this entrepreneurially, reinvention in general is like a job. Like, it's a process by which you are going through stages. And so at this stage, in stage 2, you are bang on. It's all about being very tactical and self-assessing and learning what you need to do to push this forward until there's like a tipping point, which is when you do hit stage 3.
And it's making choices, right? There are probably infinite skills that you could theoretically learn. I see this a lot, and I think it actually is pretty close to spot on when you see business coaches say this. Like, there's kind of, if you're an entrepreneur, there's kind of always like one problem that you need to be solving in your business, right? Obviously, when you solve that problem, then you find out what the next problem is that you have to solve. Like, that's the nature of entrepreneurial business. But I think that's kind of true for all of us. There's 1 to maybe 3 things that are like really peak. And like one of those is the most urgent thing to do, like first, serially. But it's real easy if you're not careful to get caught up in the 50 million different things. I mean, yeah, there's some esoteric social media marketing skills that I could probably use to grow my business more efficiently. But like, that is not the long pole in the tent right now.
Brother, you're so right on. I mean, who's the person that talks about, we saw a video recently, you and I watched it, around like every day when you're in this stage of reinvention, you're stage 2, the most important thing to do is to identify what is the 1 to 3 most important things you need to do that day.
Yeah.
Because a lot of times what happens in the reinvention process is you go back to your old identity. You go back to the things that you know, which may or may not apply to these new lines of business and work. Okay, so that's why game planning is so important here. And we're going to talk a lot about self-assessment on this podcast. Like, how do I self-assess? How do I build KPIs? And these are all things that we do in our community. We help people build these personalized KPIs for themselves as they're reinventing, which is really important. But I think getting tactical on a day-to-day basis is just being unemotional around looking at what are the things that I need to do to explore. And maybe some of them are more uncomfortable than things that are more easy for you to do. But that's reinvention. Like, we need to step into the discomfort. We need to be open to the idea that we're reinventing. Reinvention means that it's new. Okay. Like, we are putting old parts of our identity and skill set to bed, in a sense, sometime. And we're opening up to new ways. And stage 2 is where this comes to life. That's why I love this stage of reinvention, because you're starting to see there's a new world out there. But now the motivation is, let me take this on. Let me look at it more closely. Like, what do I need to do?
Yeah. I know we're talking about game planning, so I don't want to get caught too much in the identity part, but I do want to bring up, as a former corporate guy, the transition, especially from stage 1 to stage 2, let's say, where there's a lot of not knowing in stage 2. There's a lot of like, I have to learn, I have to figure out new skills, I have to know what I don't know. After 20 years of, it was sort of my responsibility to know, right? To be polished, to have the answer most of the time, at least. And that was a real shift for me, right? To be able to get comfortable. And again, you have to make these tactical decisions to say, what do I have to learn? What can I copy / steal from somebody who's already doing it? And then this is getting later in stage 2. Well, what do I have to hire for? Right. And I think that's kind of getting into a stage. That's like a stage 3 problem.
Let's go there. Let's go to stage 3, because stage 3 is when, and if you're listening to this, you're like, why am I reinventing? I have a lot of people like, I'm already doing this. I put up my shingle. I'm doing this. I'm doing X, Y, Z. And I'm doing a lot of things that you're saying. Okay. And now it's where you really want to like build the game plan. I would say as you're going through these stages, it's a little bit ambiguous in stage 1, like, already get clarity. In stage 2, it's more about game planning around being somewhat tactical about what's possible, learning new skills, like building some KPI dashboard. In stage 3, you're now at the point of, this can be a real thing, or it already is a real thing. And now I want to set up my future to be solid over the long term. This is where you want to start thinking about a 5-year game plan. and really start looking at the bigger picture. Like, I don't recommend people doing that necessarily in stage one outside of creating a life vision that's idyllic. That's a really good exercise. But when you get to this point, this is where you want to start really building this reinvented business for yourself at stage three. And what I found and why this is so exciting, and Chris, like, I know you're there too, at this stage of people that reinvent, the future's really bright. Meaning that, yeah, the world is crazy and AI is coming, but when reinventors look at this stage and like, man, I could actually make as much or more money than I was in my previous life. And it could actually be much more aligned with the lifestyle I want to be leading and the freedom that I want to have and like the adventures I want to have. Like, God forbid we talk about actually living a fulfilling and enjoying life in reinvention, right? And it also is more related to my real talents and my real kind of gifts and like what my purpose is. Like, when you do that, I call it the Holy Grail. You know, I call it the Holy Grail because then now you're really, and there are people doing that right now. And when you reach that stage, it's time to put the pedal to the metal because you have the opportunity to really, really make it happen.
I mean, that's super exciting, right? And it's just different flavors of game planning. I love what you said, right? And in the beginning, when you're getting that vision and to get the 5 years from now, what you're going to be doing, you literally cannot conceive of that. But when you're at the stage three, like really, that's the point where you're saying, hey, this is a real business. This is a real thing. Like, if you want it to be big and you want it to be something that you're excited about, then you really owe it to yourself. It's your responsibility to make that plan in that way, right? To make it come true. And I love also what you're tapping into there, Todd, around the idea of this can be fun. This can be not only abundant and wealth creating, but the whole idea of reinvention is that you are so aligned at this point. The work makes so much sense to you. It's something that you care so much about. Your whole life is aligned. You're having a lot of fun doing this thing. And it's the very opposite of stage zero, where you're like, I'm collecting a check, but I don't know why I'm doing this.
I mean, this is why I love the 3 stages. And this is why we built the community. And by the way, if this is your first time listening to Chris and I, we built a community where we do coaching every week around reinvention, right? So whether you're in stage 1 and you need clarity, like boom, like we got you. You're in stage 2 and you're like building out your KPIs and trying to figure out what that next phase game plan is. Like, that's what we do here. And then for people in stage 3, the goal is what I said before, which is let's get you reinvented where you're making as much or more money and it's matched up with your lifestyle and your purpose. And then a lot of people leave me and I get really upset because I was like, all right, like you're like new in the world and
they've flown, the bird has flown out of the nest.
And they send me letters from their yachts in San Tropez and they're like, oh, thank you, man. That was really good that I did that. That is the path. And so if this is interesting, like definitely check out our community. You can join up and get on calls with us because that's our passion. Like, you see how much energy like you have. I love watching you talk about this because it's like you went through it like really well. And it took you a while. And now your mission is to wrap it up in something that people can see as a real process that has validity, right? And research behind it and say, hey, do this because I wasn't able to do that. And so I don't know, I'll give you the last word, but I love this conversation on game planning.
You said it, man. Like, I'm so excited. There's people in our community right now that we were just talking to the other day that I'm like, in a weird way, looking forward to at the end of next year when they leave. Yep. Because they're on the yacht or whatever it is. I think we as coaches, sometimes we can see it in them before they can see it in themselves. And honestly, there's nothing more fun for me than talking to somebody who's just dipping their toe in and then 6, 9, 12 months later, they're like in it fully. I mean, that is super exciting. And we know some of the people we're talking to right now are going to go through that. That is what's so cool about this. That's what got me so excited.
Yeah, it's fun, man. And by the way, guys, like reinvention is on. Like this is, I think, one of the most important topics for anyone that's in some level of career transition. And you know, our goal for this podcast is to every episode give you like practical insights, real tools. We'll be bringing in other people, you know, that we'll interview, like who have reinvented or have some level of skill. So definitely follow along here and like take it on. Our message is turn towards it. You know, don't dismiss it. Don't run away from it. Like turn towards it because there's a lot of people in that boat right now. And when we come together, we're more powerful and you'll get there faster. So with that, I think we're signing off and it's just been a pleasure to be with you. And you too, Chris. It's been awesome.
Thanks, Todd. It's been great.
Yeah. All right. Later, guys.